What's up, guys? So I think we've covered enough HTML to start developing locally. So the first thing we need to do is step away from code.io and get an editor on our local machines. So I'm going to use an editor called Visual Studio Code. It's a free editor, and the reason why I'd like to use this one is because it has an extension called Live Server, which makes it super easy for us to start a live server locally. So the first thing you're going to want to do is, just go to Google and search Visual Studio Code. Go to the first link. Then I'm using Mac, so I'm just going to download for Mac, and it should start downloading. Once it's downloaded, open it, and then install it, and then you can run it. And that's pretty much it for installing Visual Studio Code. On Windows, I think it's a bit different, but I'm pretty sure it's just as easy. So once you have Visual Studio Code installed, let's start a new project. I'm just going to open up a directory and create a new I'm going to create a new folder, call it my first web page. Then in Visual Studio Code, I'm going to go to File, Open, and open that directory. So tutorials, my first web page. Cool, and it's blank. So just a brief overview of Visual Studio Code. All the files you have are on the left, and on the right, this will be where our code will appear. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to say new file, and I'm going to call it index.html. Because the extension is .html, Visual Studio Code should help us format this file like an HTML file. So it's super handy to have an editor like this. There's another cool feature that Visual Studio Code has, which is called Emit. And Emit is a plugin that auto-completes HTML tags for you and also has shortcuts for making little HTML snippets. So for example, we can write HTML, then go press down to :5, then press tab. And this is the base template of an HTML page, which is really handy because you don't want to have to be typing this boilerplate in every time. So there's also some HTML tags that we haven't seen before. There's the doc type. This tells the browser that this is an HTML5 document. The language, it tells the browser that that the primary language in this document is English. And you can obviously have other languages. Then there's the header. So the header content isn't actually visualized in the browser. This is stuff that the browser can read on the page and understand about the website, but it's not displayed. So you can't put like your table or your list elements in the head. What you can do is link to CSS files, which help style the page, or JavaScript files, which provide functionality for the page. So right now it has some meta tags, and we'll just leave those for now. But one important thing that it does have is this title. This title is actually what gets displayed here in the browser. So we can change that to my first web page. And inside the body tags, this is where we'll have all our visual content. So like our tables or our lists that we made. Let's just make a quick list here. So if we remember, we can use UL for an unordered list. And if we press tab, it will then close off the tag for us. Press enter, we can then press LI and then tab again, and it will close off the tab. And we can say list item 1, and we can then press enter and do the same thing a couple more times. So list item 2, press enter, LI, and list item 3. Cool, so now we have an HTML page. Let's also just save it. Now we have an HTML page, but how do we actually see this in our browser? So what we can do is if we press Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P if you're on a PC, then we go type install, and we go down here to install extensions. Then in the extensions, we can search for an extension called Live Server. So Live Server. It's this one here, launch a development local server. So then click install. Once that's installed, we can go back to our index page, and then we can press Control-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P again. And then in here, we type Live Server. And then we can go here to Live Server, open with Live Server. And this will open our HTML document inside our browser. So we press Enter. And here we go. Here is our web page. And as you can see, with the title was changed here. So if we just move this to the side, I'm just going to zoom in on this a bit. And we can close this. Push this to the left. Now we can see that if we, for instance, make a new list item here, li tab list item 4, and we save it, it'll appear on the right. And we can also, my first web page, and just add some exclamation marks there, save it, and the page gets updated. There's also something else that I want to cover quickly before we finish this, is that we'll notice that the URL that we're pointing to is 127.0.0.1, and this number is called the port number, and /index.html. So right now we've created a local server, and it's the IP that it's using is our localhost IP. So your localhost IP points to this 127.0.0.1. We can actually change this to localhost. That's very common when you're developing. You'll be pointing to your local host, which is your local computer, and not an IP of a server that's in like an Amazon server or a Google server. You don't have to get into port numbers or anything right now. Just know that that 127.0.0.1 points to your local host, your local environment, and servers can serve on multiple different ports. So we could actually start a port, an 8000 or 8001, 8002, 8003. We could have multiple servers running, and we could access the data on multiple ports. But that's getting a bit far into it. All you need to know for now is that localhost points to your local computer, and we're getting served this index.html file locally, and that points to this file here. Cool, I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, it's fine. We're just learning HTML for the moment, and we'll get into this. So that's pretty much it for installing Visual Studio Code, setting up a live server. It's really easy, and getting our HTML to display in our browser locally. Now we don't have to use codepen.io anymore. I think I was referring to it as code.io. This whole video, I meant CodePen. Though CodePen is still pretty cool, but now we can get into way more detail. Thanks. As before, please like and subscribe, or let me know in the comments what kind of material you'd like to see, or what you'd like to learn. Or you can just DM me and say what's up. Thanks guys. Thanks for watching. Cheers.